Welcome, everyone, to the HamptonRoads.net users group. My name is Kevin Griffin. I'm joined by my cohort, Drew. Drew, how are you today?
I'm doing great, and you, sir?
Doing well. We're a little bummed we're not in our live location, but maybe next month we'll be somewhere live and we can see each other in person. We're going to keep our fingers crossed on that. But virtual is always great, and we're joined this evening for us, very late for our guest, Adora Nwodo. I'm sorry if I'm butchering your name correctly. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. Now you're out in Nigeria, so it is very late for you. And we appreciate you taking the time to hang out with us. Um, you're going to talk to us tonight about actually a subject I don't know anything about, Azure Bicep. I've seen it in slides and keynotes. So you'll be the one teaching, at least me, uh, everything you know for the first time. Um, so hopefully the chat is just like I am, and we're all learning something that we've never seen before. Um, Adora, we're going to let you speak here in a moment, but I want to let the chat know if you have any questions at all, just type them away. We're going to save our questions for the end of the presentation. So Adora can have your full attention and answer your questions in the best way possible. Or better yet, maybe she'll answer your questions while she's presenting. But with that said, Adora, I am going to go ahead and put your slides back up and let you take it from there.
Okay. Hi, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on when you're joining this from. I am joining this from Lagos, Nigeria, and it's quite late, but I'm happy to be here. I'm happy to be talking to all of you today. And I'm going to be doing an introductory talk about Azure Bicep. It's actually one of the things I like to talk about recently. I've been doing a lot of talking about Bicep. But before I get into it, I'll quickly want to introduce myself. My name is Adora, and I'm a software engineer currently building mixed reality on the cloud at Microsoft. I'm also a multi published author. I like to say 2.5 books because I don't consider the third as a book, but people that have read it love it and they tend to call it a book as well. So I have my first book is Cloud Engineering for Beginners, and then I also have a book on Azure DevOps. And I recently released like a DevOps roadmap and study guide. I don't call the study guide a book, but people that have read it like to call it a book and think that it has like rich, amazing content. And I'm grateful for them. So yeah, there's that. I'm a social entrepreneur. I'm involved in a bunch of communities in and out of tech. I'm very particular about giving back to the communities and just helping people grow and making the world a better place than I met it. And I'm also a digital creator. So you'd find me on YouTube making videos, you find me on Instagram as well. You'd find me on LinkedIn and on Twitter doing some threads about tech or any other thing I find interesting. Um so now let's get to it. I don't know how many people here know ARM, that's Azure Resource Manager. But Bicep is a DSL that uses declarative syntax to deploy Azure resources. So if you've used ARM before in the past, you've used ARM to deploy Azure resources, and Bicep also does the same thing. But now, as opposed to JSON, where it's easy for you to make some mistakes, you have a language that you can actually use. And there's IntelliSense, there's like autocomplete, there's like a bunch of things that help you be more productive as you write. You can reuse templates, it's more structured, you know, things like that, right? And this is just an example of what a bicep template looks like. So this is a bicep template to create a storage account on Azure, right? So you define the resource and then you add all the parameters. So here I'm specifying the name of the storage account, the location, the kind of storage account, and the school of the storage account. How does Bicep work? So Bicep is transpiled to JSON, and the JSON becomes an input to the resource manager. Um, when that happens, Azure is now able to create the resources that you specify in that transpiled JSON template. And basically, transpilation is converting one source code written in one language to another language. So basically, what happens is that you write Azure Bicep, but Azure, the resource manager, the provider that is going to create those Azure resources, cannot read Bicep. So there is a transpilation that happens that gets the Azure Bicep template that you wrote to a corresponding ARM template. Now that ARM template is what goes into Azure and the resources are created. What this means is that instead of you writing those long ARM templates by yourself, you can actually just write Bicep, which is shorter, more concise, is more reusable, and the Bicep engine does all the work of transpiling that Bicep code to ARM code, and you don't have to worry about that. I know that as I've been talking about some of the advantages of using Bicep, which is code reuse with Bicep modules. I think that's a very, very big one for me. Um, all state is stored in Azure as well. So you don't have like an external state file, maybe a JSON file or a YAML file that you're using to track your application's infrastructure states. When you create a storage account, when you create a key vault, how many secrets you have. You're not worried about all of those things, right? Because all the state is stored in Azure in the deployment tabs of your subscriptions and your resource groups. And there's full Azure support because Bicep is created by the people that have created ARM as well. It's created by Azure as well. And so it's different when you are using Bicep that is created by the same company, the same platform. You have direct support when you have issues with like debugging, as opposed to if you're using an external provider to do your IAC. There's some problems that you might run into that might be Azure related or provider related, but then you really don't know who's paying for support because you're kind of like stuck in the middle, right? So yeah, full Azure support here, and you can work with that. There's the syntax for Bicep is also relatively simple. It's a lot simpler than JSON anyway. It's a lot simpler than writing JSON and template. So that's that. Um, so now let's go to what Bicep modules are. These modules are single responsibility files that can make your Bicep code base more readable and easier to manage. So let's think about it like this. Let's say that I wish I could take this off. Okay. Let's think about it like this. Let's say that I have a Bicep template that I'm calling main.bicep. And in this template, I have defined four resources. I have resource one, resource two, resource three, and resource four in this template. Now, if let's say for whatever reason I add more resources, it's getting bigger. So now I have resource 5, 6, 7, and 8 as well in the same template. It's still okay. And now somehow I have 16 resources. My Bicep template file has become very big to read, manage, and things like that. I can break it down into different modules if there are files that are related. Let's go back to the definition of a module. A module is a single responsibility file that can make your Bicep code base more readable and easier to manage. What this means, for example, let's say we're building a web app, and for the web app there's some DNS stuff. There's things that make up the web app, and there is other things that you need, like database related things, right? So let's say for the DNS things that are networking related, you want to create your DNS records, you want to create your CNAME records, you want to create your DNS zones and all of that. You can put them in one module because they're related to each other, right? And then in your main Bicep templates, you can call and reuse that module. Then if you want to now try it again for like the web app, you can create, okay, the app service certificates, the app service plan, that's the server farm, like the hosting plan. Then you can create whether it's a function app or a normal like app service app. You can go create that, and you can make all of those things in one module because they are related to each other. Now the Cosmos DB things, you go create the Cosmos DB account, you go create the Cosmos DB containers, like each of the containers that you need. Maybe if you need to do role assignments, maybe you need to assign some roles to the Cosmos DB. Like the app needs to have some role assignments on the Cosmos DB. You can do all of that there and make that in its own module as well. And then you can now call all those modules in the main template, something looking like this, where you have an app module, a network module, and a security module. So instead of your app looking like this, where there's so many things, you now have 5 files. One file is your app module, second file is your media module, third file is your network module, fourth file is your security module, and you have your main template where you are importing all of those modules and using them. Think about reusable functions and classes in object-oriented programming, where instead of you writing the same code over and over and over again, you define, some blocks of code in a class or in a function, and you can call that function in the same class. And depending on the access modifier that function has, you can also call it outside of the class, things like that. So with Bicep modules, you can use them in various templates that you have. So it helps with code reuse, because imagine I have a template and in multiple places I'm supposed to be creating storage accounts, app service apps, and app service plans. I might do it in like 4 places, but if I had just written one module that does it, I could reuse that module in those different places. So it helps with code reuse and things like that. um and I just talked about this where, like, if you can see this example, we can see that the first template is using some of those modules. It's using the app module and the media module. The second template is using the app module, the media module, the network module, and the security module is using all the modules. And the third template is using the security module and the network module. So we can see that there is like code reuse going on there.
All right. Assuming it's not just me, is it?
Nope.
All right. Well, let's hold for a second. Hi, everybody. Adora, can you hear us? Oh,
Hi, I don't
hi.
know what happened. My internet sort of kicked me out.
No worries. You
My
were one
internet kicked me.
slide back when you froze and
Okay,
dropped off.
okay, cool. Um, so yeah, as I was saying, apologies for the break in transmission. As I was saying, benefits of Bicep modules are code reuse, encapsulation, better IAC code design, and composability. With modules, you can define the architecture of your IAC code base. You know, you want to create templates like this, and you want to reuse them in certain areas. You want to make some of those template libraries. You can do all of that, and there's like the opportunities and the possibilities are limitless when it comes to how you can choose to design your IAC code base, reusing all of that code and encapsulating things as well. So you choose to only share, for example, if I make some of these modules libraries, I might not want to share some of these modules like core implementation with maybe interns on my team. It's just that, okay, use the library and it is going to create a bunch of things for you. It's going to create a container registry. It's going to create um, a VM. It's going to create like a bunch of things. It's going to create a bastion host, and then you can, deploy all of those things into Azure. The person isn't actually seeing the code that does all of that, and they don't need to. All they want to see is that they're using that module and it's doing the work for them. um there's also composability in the sense that the output of a module can be the input of another module. So for example, there's a web app module here in this diagram, and the web app module would have an output called maybe app host name. So in the main.bicep file, I am using that web app module. And because I create a web app in my main template, I get access to the output, which is app host name, right? And I can use that app host name as an input to another module. So let's say I have like a networking module where I am now creating um CNAME records, for example. So I want to point, I'm doing DNS things, I'm doing some mappings, or even like with traffic managers and things. And now I want to point my web app host name to a traffic manager endpoint or something. I would have to pass in this host name that I've got from one module as an input into my networking module, so that the networking module knows to use it to do the work that I want it to do. So you can also achieve that composability with modules. And this is how you use a module in Bicep using the module keyword. The first Bicep scripts that I showed you, the first Bicep template, what was there was the resource keyword, because we were directly creating a storage account. I want to see if I can like go back to that slide quickly just to show. Yes. So this was like the first one where we're just creating like the storage account out of the block, and we're using a resource keyword. We're naming the resource, and then we're passing in the type of resource we want to create and the API version, and then specifying all those things there. With modules, it's different, right? So with modules, you just write the module keyword and then the name of the module, and then you specify the path where the module is. So in this case, the module is in a module slash serverless app.bicep file, and then I specify the name of the module, what I want to name it, just so that in my Azure deployments, it has like a specific name and a specific identifier, and then the parameters. So I am done with this now. I know you can see thank you, but hold that thought just for a little second. I will share my screen now because I want to show you this in like real time. I have a Bicep Shorts script that I have written that I'd like to share and demo. So I will just like put up my screen now, like my whole entire screen. Or I could just actually share only Visual Studio Code. Um, yeah, so I'm going to sharing Visual Studio Code right
All
now.
right.
Yeah. So this,
Yep. It's up for everyone to see.
okay, cool. This is me in Visual Studio Code, right? And I'm going to start. So I have a main.bicep file, and in my main.bicep, I'm using two modules here. So I have a networking module, and then I have a web app module. As we can see, my web app module is in module slash web apps.bicep. My networking module is in module slash networking.bicep. I have created a name for these modules, and I have passed in different parameters. So now let's go to the web app module. This web app module has a bunch of parameters. These are the things that I pass in, and I named them so that it's like, easy for me to understand. So if I hover over like each parameter, I can see the description. Oh, this is the name of the app service app. This is the name of the plan. This is the school. So I just put like descriptions over them like this. But you can choose to actually not have all of these decorators. They're called decorators. You can choose to not have them. It doesn't matter. You can just like only define your parameters and it will still work the same way. So now let's go to the resource definitions. Here, I am defining an app service plan. And here, like this is where I pass in the name of the app service plan and all the other things. So I'm just using them here. And this is the name of the module, web app.bicep. And this is it right here. So here I'm defining an app service plan. Here I am defining a storage account. Here I am defining an app service app. So it is of Microsoft the web slash site. So this is like a normal app service that will get created. A storage account will get created, and an app service plan will also get created. And this is the output from there, right? In the web app. Now, if we go to networking, I'm creating a traffic manager profile. And in that traffic manager profile, I have one traffic manager endpoint there. So we have this file already. And the funny thing is, I can actually decide, okay, so I'm not going to do this yet. I'll do it as like a follow up. So since we have these files, we have the module, we have the two modules. So we can go ahead and deploy. I've already done my AZ login and everything. So let me just show you the deploy statement. I need to quickly go into um, Azure and just like create a resource group that I want to deploy to. So I want to deploy to a resource group called Adora RG. I know you can't see my screen right now because I'm only sharing my Visual Studio Code screen and I'm currently in my browser. So, anyways, I'm currently creating the resource group and I have created the resource group now and it's empty. So let's come back to Visual Studio Code, right? And I have, this is the statement for deploying. So I'm going to do an AZ deployment group create, and I'm naming this deployment Adora deployment. This is the resource group I want to deploy to Adora RG. I have to quickly go to Azure to create it because it didn't exist. And then my template file that I want to deploy is main.bicep. Similar to how in programming you have an entry point, in Bicep you also have an entry point. So in programming in C sharp, your entry point is usually maybe like a program.cs or a startup.cs. So in this case, I am saying my entry point is my main.bicep. Main.bicep will call webapp.bicep and it will also call networking.bicep because I've passed in those two modules and specified the path. So now let me press enter and let's watch the magic happen essentially. So it might take some time, I believe. I think while this is taking time, what I want to do now is reshare my screen. I would really like to I really like to like reshare my entire like screen so that I'm not doing like so that I stop all these back and forth with like different windows. Yes. So now let's go back to Visual Studio. So it's still running. VS Code is still running. Let's wait for a bit. And then when it's done, I'll take you to Azure so that we can see what's there. Remember, take note of the resources that we have created. We have, or rather, we will be creating. We will be creating an app service plan. We will be creating a storage account. We will be creating an app service, application, and we will also be creating a traffic manager profile that has a traffic manager endpoint inside of it. So let's wait for this to finish running. I don't know why it's taking so much time. I think it's because it's raining. So my internet isn't really at its best today. But hopefully it gets done soon. Yes, so it's done and we can see all the resources that it has created, right? It has created traffic manager profile, storage account, server farm, and websites. So let's go check it out. I'm going to my browser right now. So let's come here. And this was the resource group that I just created and I said I wanted to deploy to. So let's click on it and see what's inside. So we have all the resources here that we specified that we wanted to create with Bicep. So now I want to do something extra. I want to create a second storage. I want to create a second storage account and I'll just call it um what do I call it? What do I call it? I'm going to call it code with Sin. Yes, I just code with Sean, sorry, because I just saw the name, so I want to use that. Yes, that's the first thing I saw. Yes, so I'll come here. I've already written code to create a storage account before, so it's just like really easy for me to copy it. So I'll come here and I want to create it in the main file because I want you to see that you can create a storage account. Um, Rather, you can create resources. You can mix it up. So in your main file, you can have some direct resources, resources that are directly like bicep declarations like this, and you can have some that are modules. A file doesn't need to have all modules or all resources. You can mix them up. So that's why I'm showing you this way. So I want to create this storage account, and like I said, I want to name it code with Sean. So code with Sean. Hopefully, there's no storage account named Code with Sean on Azure, so it doesn't tell me that it already exists. But let's see how it goes. Um, and then obviously the school name is standard LRS, and then let's also take this storage V2 is the kind. So we have this now, and I am going to run that command. I'm going to run that command again. I don't know what just happened. Can you still see my screen? Okay, cool. I don't know what just happened. So we're going to run that command again, and it's still going to leave everything as is, but now it's going to add the storage accounts to it. So let's wait for that deployment to be complete. While we wait, I think it's okay to like for the questions to start rolling in if there are any questions, because I think just showing you that this gets deployed in Azure would be the last thing I have to show you, and then we can get to the questions if there are any questions, because it's taking some time. Okay, it's running now anyway, so let's just wait for it to finish, and then I'll just show you that the storage account also exists in Azure, and that'll be the end of my talk.
Yeah, it never runs as quickly as you want it to. As soon as you get off the stream, it'll run like yeah.
Yeah, so let's just wait. It should be done any moment now.
All right, folks, you heard her. If you have any questions, drop them in the chat, and we'll do a race. Who can ask the first question, or does Bicep finish before?
I just also want to state that Bicep is a really good alternative for ARM, but like unlike things like Terraform and Pulumi, Bicep works with only Azure. Like ARM works with only Azure, right? And as opposed to stressing yourself writing like really bulky JSON files, you can just write up a bunch of Bicep templates like this, and you can reuse them, and have like different kinds of resources. So now let's go back. It's done deploying. So now let's go back, and I'm just going to refresh this resource group, and then we can see if it's there. So yeah, it's there. Code with Sean. So we can do incremental deployments where we just keep adding resources. There's another deployment mode called complete. And if you do complete mode, it checks the state of your resource group with the state of the Bicep template that you have. And if there's any resource that is in your resource group that is not in the template, it deletes that resource. If there's any resource that is in the template that is not in the resource group, it adds that resource. And the resources that are in both resource group and the template, if there are no modifications to it, it preserves it as it is. So yeah, I'm done. So if there are any questions, I can take them now. Thank you. And I'd also like to share, if it's okay, Kevin, I'd like to share like the presentation as well as the code. So I'll be reaching out to
Absolutely.
you later on just to like share the links to where people can find that if it will be helpful for anyone.
I can, if you want to we could drop them here now. I'll also make sure they're with the replay. You can send them to me afterwards. Whatever is easiest for you.
I could actually drop them here now. I have the code on GitHub, so let me just go find the link, and I will share that right away. And since the presentation is like a Google slide, I can share that as well right now. So yeah.
Yeah, if you drop that into the StreamYard chat, I'll make sure that gets out to everyone now.
Okay. Okay. Sorry, give me a moment.
You're perfectly fine.
I have like a bunch of like different projects, so I'm like scrolling through the different ones. Yeah, I think this one will do. Let me see if I can filter by. Yeah, so let me just filter by language and see what pops up. Because I have like a bunch of bicep things here, so I want to share, or I could just share all of them to be honest. But I want to share the one that is like most beginner friendly. Um, yeah, since this is probably like the first time many people in the audience are hearing, so I just shared that in the chat. So
Okay.
let me
I
also
will.
share the presentation as well.
All right, everyone now live is dropping into the comments right now.
And yeah, I have shared the presentation as well.
All right, I will drop this as well. There was a question that just came in, asking, can can it be set up to not delete existing resources?
Yeah, sure. So I was talking about deployment mode. So this is not a bicep thing. This is more an ARM Azure thing. So in ARM, there are um, two kinds of deployment modes. You have your complete mode and you have your incremental mode. So if you don't want to delete resources and you just want to, keep, adding to your bicep code base, and if there's no if the resource that you're trying to create does not exist in the resource group, then bicep creates it. I would suggest that you use incremental mode. However, if you want the state of your bicep template to always be the state of your Azure, infrastructure, right? So if you if you want it so that if I delete something in my bicep template, I want Azure to also delete it the next time I run a deployment, you should use complete mode. So it's about the different deployment modes that exist, and you can set the modes if you want. The default is set to incremental, but you can also use complete mode as well. Um, I also see the next question: is it very difficult to reverse engineer an environment to bicep files? No, it's not actually. So you can even like decompile. You can decompile ARM code, so you can decompile like JSON ARM templates to bicep files. You can do that in Visual Studio Code. There's like, I'm going to drop the link in the chat right now, but there's like tutorials in like the Microsoft Docs to tell you how to do that. So if you have, and they created it so it's easy for people that have like bulky ARM templates but would like to move to bicep, because bicep is easier to manage. So if they have like bulky ARM templates and they want to move to bicep, they can decompile their ARM code into like bicep templates. So yeah, there is a way to do that. Let me find it right now. Microsoft decompile bicep. Yes, I'll just like drop the link in the chat. Yes, so yeah, that's the first thing that came up. So you can decompile your ARM code and you would get like bicep templates, the corresponding bicep templates when you do that.
All right, I have posted that for everyone to see. I had a very similar question because it was we have a lot of Azure resources across a lot of different resource groups that we've just built up over the past 8 years. And like things that like ARM templates weren't even really a thing when we started building out our Azure infrastructure. And then Bicep came along. It's like, oh, that looks really nice if we were starting something brand new, but it doesn't seem nice for if we were trying to go through and figure out how to replicate our entire environment. So resources to figure out how to do that easier would definitely be useful for us.
I actually think maybe I could write an article about this sometime, but I think you can. It's a gradual process, but it's very possible. I think the first step would be to export the templates. And I mean, with your resources, if you go to like the different resource groups in Azure, you can export those ARM templates. If you
Yeah.
get those ARM templates, you can start decompiling them in bits, right? So it's a gradual process. It might take some time, but you get to a point where you actually have the corresponding bicep templates to all of that, and it makes managing your IAC a lot easier, if you ask
Yeah.
me. But it will just take some time to do, but it's possible. I could write an article about that sometime in the future when I have some time, maybe sometime later this month or early next month, for people that I know might need something like that. But it's very possible, and it's relatively straightforward to do once you can export the YAM templates from Azure.
Gotcha. I know. Yeah, that'd be useful. At least me. I don't know if anyone else in chat would would say that, but I think it'd be useful to me and anyone who's been on Azure for a period of time.
A really long
Um,
time, yeah.
yeah.
I agree.
All
I think
right.
the worst, it's easy if you maybe were using ARM or you were just like creating Azure resources manually. I think the worst one will be having to move from like a Terraform
Yeah.
to Bicep, right? Because they're not transpiling anything there. You are going to have to, and it's still kind of like the same thing, to be honest. You'd export the ARM templates and then you do that. But if you want your code to follow the same design that your Terraform, the same structure that Terraform had, you might need to do some work there. But it's still possible. And this is coming from someone that has actually done it, because I've moved from one different IAC to Bicep recently. Um, and we still wanted to retain the design of like the structure of like the way we had the code before. So it's possible really. And I think that Bicep is designed in such a way that the migration is easy to adopt.
All right. Chat, this is your last chance. Any questions for Adora? Feel free to drop them in now.
If you feel like you have questions but they're not coming to you right now, you could always send me a DM on Twitter, or you could mention me on TL on Twitter. I'm going to drop my Twitter on the chat. I'm very
Oh, that's right. I
responsive.
was going to do that, and I didn't do it earlier.
I'll be happy to help with anything I can.
Yeah. We go. I'll also put it up on the video for everyone. So go follow Adora. What's that, Drew?
Our Twitter, LinkedIn, and YouTube channel are also in the meetup page.
And we will also have that along with the replay. So excellent, excellent. Alrighty. Folks saying nice presentation. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right. Well, we'll go ahead and wrap it up there. Thank you, everyone, for hanging out with us. Thank you, Adora, for teaching us something new. At least I learned something new. So if you only reach one person, right, let it be me. And thank you so much for hanging out with us. We'll have a replay available of this in the next day or two once I can get to it. And everyone watching live, we'll be back next month with another presentation. And make sure you go follow Adora. She's got a lot of really good stuff she talks about.
Thank you.
Thank you
Thank you
so
much.
much. All right, everyone out there live, thanks for watching.